Welcome to the Maine Basketball Rankings Podcast. I'm your host, basketball data nerd Lucas McNelly. Today's show is brought to you once again by Vertical Raise. Sports teams need money for helmets and cleats and shooting shirts and balls and bats and maybe someday a shot clock. Vertical Raise allows you to raise money in less time. Check the show notes for information on how you can start to elevate your fundraising to new heights with Vertical Raise. Okay, so if you can believe it, we are through week 6 of the football season. Ethan Snow is here today to overreact to all of that and sort of give you a look at the stretch run of the last 2 weeks of the season, how things might shake out. Before we do that, make sure you subscribe on Facebook or YouTube or wherever to help create more content like this. Trying to get to monetization on YouTube. That means 100 subscribers, which is free. It's free to subscribe, much like it's free to vote for Dexter at votedexter.com so they can get their new turf field and win $1 million from T-Mobile. But I'm trying to get to YouTube monetization because then it helps me go to more games. This weekend I went to 3 games, which was a lot of driving. First off, I went to Greeley and Wells at Greeley because that was the game of the day. And if the game of the day makes sense to get to, I try to get to the game of the day because it's the game of the day for a reason. Greeley, of course, is your defending 8-man large champion who is in C. Wells is your defending Class D champion who is also in C. C is a lot this year if you haven't figured that out already. Greeley was clearly the better team in this game. I got into this more with Ethan later in the show, but I wanted to show you this clip that I mentioned with him. Spoiler alert, I'm recording this after I talked to Ethan because if you haven't already figured that out. So it's 14-7 with a minute left in the half. Greeley is driving. They are down 14-7. They should be up 21-0. And Luke Piper goes deep to Benjamin Kiles. And let's go to the clip. So that's a pretty good catch. I, filming it, thought, well, that's clearly pass interference, and okay. And then he pops up with the ball and spikes it. I was like, oh, okay. That ties the game. Greeley takes off from there. I think for my money, they're now the favorites. In C, they're 6-0. They've looked better as the season's gone on. I've seen them twice now. And I think they're at the top of a very loaded, very crowded Class C. So then Saturday, I went to Madomic and York. It was all Madomic in this one. Jaden Ruiz had 5 touchdowns for the Panthers. And then I'm getting messages in my DMs from Michael Hathaway. He's like, hey, you going to come up to this Gardner Levitt game? This Gardner Levitt game should be good. And I'm like, do I want to? And I'm looking at how long this game is taking. And I'm like, if I leave right now and I swing by the house and get some warm clothes, because temperature is going to drop, obviously, I think I can make it to Levitt in time for the game. So I did that. I go up to Levitt. Never been to Levitt for a football game before. I went to a basketball game there once, and the school, like, there's something, or maybe the way I approached the school, this could all be me. Like, I went in the wrong door because there wasn't, like, nothing jumped out at me as the obvious, like, hey, this is the door you should go in. And so then I'm in the bowels of the school, and I'm just wandering around, and I feel like Spinal Tap when they're like, hello, Cleveland. It took me forever to find the gym. Football field, much easier to find because you got the big lights, the whole thing. So a couple things about this game. Levitt looks way better than they did early in the year at Greeley. And they looked really good at Madomic 2 weeks ago when I saw that game. So they're up 12-0, and Gardner is struggling. They can't move the ball. Gardner, of course, is undefeated. And then they definitely need a break. And then this play happens. You might have already seen this on Facebook because I immediately saw this play right in front of me and went, oh, this is going to do well on Facebook. So I put it on Facebook and people have been arguing about it nonstop. But it feels like I don't really look at the comments, but I've looked at some of the comments and it's probably been 80%. That's clearly an incomplete pass. And Levitt got the ball for the 2-point conversion as quickly as they possibly could. Because it was right in front of him and incomplete pass. So anyway, that's like the last thing you need if you're Gardner in that situation. And they couldn't get any traction. And the game ended up in running time. I think it was either running time or it was definitely JV minutes. And I was not expecting JV minutes in that. So Rob Kennedy's dream of Gardner and Coney being 7-0 when they meet in week 8 has died. Coney is held up their end of the bargain, though. We'll talk about them more. Whether or not Parker Morin is he the front runner for Fitzpatrick? Maybe. Who knows? I think it feels pretty wide open. But then the other thing at Levitt, and I'm not saying this to throw anyone under the bus or get anyone in trouble. I'm mostly saying it to keep myself out of trouble. So if you've never been to a game, you're at a game, you're not really paying attention to what people like me and Mike Hoffer and Steve Craig and Mike Mandel are doing, is we're generally, and I picked this up from all of them, is you're generally standing on the sideline and going with the ball. As the line of scrimmage moves, you move. Hoffer's like right on the line of scrimmage. Steve Craig's usually pretty close to the line of scrimmage. And because they're trying to get exact yardage and they got to see where the ball is, and it's hard to do that at an angle. I want the angle because I'm shooting video and then getting highlights to use here and use on social and in the newsletter. So I kind of want the angle. So I'm 7 or 8 yards off the line of scrimmage usually. And I'm trying to get a good angle where I can see the quarterback. And more importantly, I'm definitely trying to not be in the way. So the side judge is who I'm usually, because I don't like to be on the side with the chains because it's too many people to see through. Some people like to be on the side with the chains. So the side judge, they're all different. And so at Madomic, for example, on Saturday, the side judge was usually 2 or 3 yards inside the field. And he would just running back and forth. Great. At Gardner, he was sort of on the line. He was sort of standing on the sideline. At Greeley, the side judge was off the field by about a foot, which is a little trickier because you're standing right there. And so just to give you a sense of how the dynamic works is you're usually talking to the refs a little bit, and they'll say, if you're standing in the wrong place for whatever reason, like sometimes they'll go shoot in the end zone and then they'll be like, oh, make sure you're not under the goalpost when they're kicking extra point for something like that. You're like, oh yeah, obviously, sure. And so at the Greeley game, the side judge is like, hey, if this is a passing play or the ball's going downfield, I'm going to come flying down here. So make sure you're not in the way. Great. Absolutely. Do not want to be in the way. Not there to be in the way. And I don't talk to the coaches while they're coaching unless they want to come talk to me. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. It kind of depends on how the game's going. The Madomic game was 40-14. So I'm chatting with Ryan Snell during downtimes a little bit. He's like, hey, you going to this Levitt game? I'm like, oh yeah, Hathaway's talking to me, maybe. So, but I'm very much there to not be in the way. I talk to coaches before the game. I talk some, but mostly after the game because then the job's over and they're sure. So anyway, so this guy comes up to us. It's me and Mike Mandel and Joe Bailey and a couple photographers. We're at I want to say we're at the 35-yard line. And the ball's probably at the 45-yard line. And he's like, hey, you guys can't be here. And we're like, what are you talking about? We're media. We can be here. We have press passes, the whole thing. He's like, no, you can't be in the coach's box, which is from the 25 to the 25. And I'm like, huh, okay. And so we all just sort of moved along because whatever. And we're all talking. Like, that's new, right? And Mandel's like, never heard that. I've never heard that. None of us have ever heard that. So we go over to the other side of the field because the ball's gone down there. Then a few minutes later, I'm standing probably 5-10 yards because I'm thinking maybe he just means don't be in the 3 feet right there, right from the first 3 feet. And so I'm off a little bit and I'm at like the 35-yard line. The ball's 10 yards away. It's a little trickier to get good video, but whatever. And he's like, hey, I told you can't be there. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? He goes, yeah, it's a rule. I'm like, what rule? I've never heard of this rule. And this is a little bit of me not being able to let things go. And I maybe have some issues with authority. And I go, is this a Levitt rule or is it an MP8 rule? Is it an NFHS rule? What rule is this? And he's explaining to me the coach's box. And this is not a coach. This is someone in Levitt gear who I have no idea who he is. And I'm listening to him explain the coach's box rule. And I'm like, I didn't say this. And I'm like, I don't think you understand the coach's box rule. I'm not sure I fully understand the coach's box rule, but you don't sound like you do. So I go, okay. He's like, well, ask the ref at halftime. Okay. So he goes over to the ref at halftime and he's talking to him and he's pointing at me. And I'm like, why? I feel like, like, am I in trouble? Am I going to get ejected from this game for doing nothing? And so then the refs go off and he says, the ref will talk to you after the halftime. After the half. Okay. So then after the half, it's the longer half, I go over to talk to the refs, and I talk to two of the refs now. And they're like, okay, so I'm like, what's going on? They're like, we talked about it at halftime, and we don't know. We don't know the rule. We don't know if there's a rule or not because, and they didn't say this, but everyone does it. It happens all the time, and maybe it's a rule that no one follows. There's plenty of those. And so he's like, we're talking, and I'm like, okay. And so then it kind of got dropped because they're like, well, we don't know if there's a rule, so we won't do anything. And they're like, we'll bring it up in the rules meeting on Tuesday. And this is the only reason I'm telling the story. If for some reason they discover that there is a rule, and I emailed a ref, and he didn't think there was, but in case they decide in this rules meeting that there is a rule and nobody can stand in the coach's box anymore, it is not my fault. I didn't do anything. I was just standing completely out of the way in the coach's box. Mike Mandel is my witness. And yeah, I don't know. The ref I emailed, it's like, this would be you. This would come up because of you. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. But sure, that's very on brand. So anyway, that's the story of how I got in trouble with people at a football game, just standing there doing literally nothing, just shooting video of a game. And yeah, Levitt looks really good. Greeley looks really good. Wells looks pretty good. Looks pretty good, just not as good as Greeley did this past weekend. And then I just also wanted to say, a bunch of people came up to me this weekend to say how much they like the podcast, how much they like the newsletter, whatever. Somebody actually asked me for a sticker. I'm carrying stickers. If you want a sticker, I got stickers. I'll hand them out. They're usually in my pocket. If not in my pocket, they're in my bag. But thanks to everyone who came and said nice things. And maybe it's just because I got a sweatshirt now that has the Maine Basketball Rankings logo on it. Okay, so that's that. Let's go to my conversation with Ethan. My guest today, you know him from WHOU.live broadcast. I know him as the guy I can stare at all tourney week from across the expo. Ethan Snow is here.
Hello, Lucas. It's great to see you again. It's been a while, but
it has been a while.
Always excited to catch up.
Yeah, you've been out in the wilderness on a vision quest or something, and now you're back in the booth doing games. And yeah, it's good to have you back.
Yeah, it's great to be back. As I've told a lot of other people, sometimes sometimes you just have to take a step back from the life for a little bit. And, when things come up, and, some people are more capable of doing it than others. And I saw an opportunity to do that, and I did. And I'm happy with the results. And I'm even more happy to be back into this life and, getting a chance to do what I love again. And that's what I'm most excited about.
And that's probably healthier than just getting blackout drunk.
Very much so. I can't. I've never done that before, but I have a pretty good idea. It's definitely a whole lot better than that. Yes.
I bet you've seen it done before.
Oh yes, I have. Plenty of times.
All right, so you're here. We're gonna overreact to week. Is this week 6?
Week 6.
I think it's week 6. Time is a flat circle. I don't know what's going on anymore. I was telling you before we got on, I've done almost no prep other than just living life and going to 3 games this weekend. And apparently I covered it in the intro, pissing off the officials or somebody. And so as I do. you know. So anyway, just to say that if there's changes, it's not my fault. I swear, I have witnesses. I emailed the ref and he's like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "I didn't do anything." Anyway, I should have told you that story before because the audience has already gotten that story, and now you're just like, "What are you talking about?" And
I can only imagine.
you can only imagine. See, you'll have to watch the episode to find out for sure.
I will. This gives me extra incentive to go back and watch this. This is great.
There you go. There you go. All right. So let's start with 8-man small because you covered what looked to be the game of the day, or maybe the
Yeah,
game of the year.
yeah, most definitely, and in unexpected fashion too. So for my first high school game back in the booth, I traveled down to go see my good friends down to Old Orchard Beach. So first and foremost, love the people in Old Orchard Beach. Dean Plant, Jason Weber, the whole um, staff down there at Old Orchard Beach, class acts. Love going down there and covering those guys, and they love it as well. For those who don't know, Dean Plant's the head coach of the football program. He's also the AD down there, and I've always tell other people, like, your stereotypical guy who's been there for 30 plus years, seen it all, done it all. Great dude. I mean, fantastic guy. And I always loved going down there. And so I couldn't have asked for a better day, couldn't have asked for better weather to make the trip
Oh yeah.
down and call that game against Lake Region. It was a cross division matchup. Lake Region's 8-man South, large. Old Orchard's obviously in the small side. But man, what a game! From the onset, from the Old Orchard got the ball first, and they did what I'm used to seeing. I've covered Old Orchard Beach football in the regular season for 3 seasons now, and there's just been more of the same. This year's a little bit different in the sense that they're younger. They're not as a veteran of a squad as they've been the past couple of years. They're younger,
Okay.
but they still got some veteran pieces, and one of
The games
those
have
is
seemed a little closer.
yes, a little bit closer, and they haven't quite been as dominant. Um, Now, if you
So they're
look at
only winning
the
40-0 instead of 80 to
right,
nothing. Yeah.
40-0, you said it's 60-0.
Yeah.
But this weekend, I mean, early on, the one top veteran that they still have is Wes Gallant. He's a senior this year. He's one of those guys that is just he's a pure athlete. You get him to do anything, he's going to do it well. And this week, he had, I don't have his exact yardage totals, but I can tell you he scored 7 touchdowns.
Was that the one
He
I
was all over
saw
the
on
place.
I saw on Instagram somebody had 7 touchdowns, and I was like, I think
That was
that's who
that
that
was
is.
them. That was the man
Yeah.
right there. And so he's just so fun to watch. I'm so glad I've gotten a chance to cover him the past 3 seasons now. On the gridiron because he's so fun to watch. And he's got a younger brother who's a freshman who's just as good as he is.
Oh,
And he's a
geez.
freshman.
That's what the rest of that class wanted to hear.
Yeah, that's exactly what the rest of the class wanted to hear. But they
It's always fun to talk to a coach when they realize that there's another one coming, and they're like, "Oh, come on."
yeah, even though his name's Cooper, he does a lot more this year. He's done a lot more on the defensive side of the ball. He's involved in their offensive scheme some, at least from the one game that I saw. But defensively, he's been a bigger piece for the Gulls this year. Um, but back to the game itself, they Old Orchard marched down the field quickly, scored, and then Lake Region surprisingly marched down the field and scored, and then Old Orchard went down, scored again, and it looked like I want to keep saying Miranda Cook. The jerseys are similar, but Lake
Mm.
Region marched down, and this was a pivotal point in the game. Was we're talking 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. We're talking about the game could be decided right here. Me and
Yeah.
my buddy Reese, who, by the way, was his very first 8-man football experience, and that was the game he got to do. He was the guy who called the game with me. So, well, I told him after the fact, I was like, well, you got possibly one of the best games of the season as your very first 8-man game. So
Yeah.
congratulations. But
Maybe not
it
an
was
accurate reflection of what you're going to get going forward.
right. But a good way to get introduced to that side of football. But excuse me. We're fourth down, and I think it was fourth down and 7. Lake Region. Sorry, folks. Lake
You're
Region
rusty.
is in exactly. Yeah, just give you an idea how long I've been out of it. But Lake Region, 4th down to 7. They're in the Old Orchard red zone looking to tie the game again. And Old Orchard comes up with a stop, and I'm talking about inches. Their Lake Region starting quarterback, he's a senior. He was the coach's son. Meehan's his last name. Takes off, runs, dives for the line to gain. We think for we're broadcasting for him, he's got it. The
Mm-hmm.
official measurement has him about 6 inches short.
Ooh.
So Old Orchard stopped it right there, and of course they go down and march. They march down the field and score again, and just like that, it's a two-possession game before the first quarter is even done. And you think and I'm thinking to myself, this is probably where Old Orchard is going to do Old Orchard what I'm used to seeing them do, and
This is the
just
script you've seen from Old
right,
Orchard Beach.
right, exactly. I've seen this umpteen million times now, but Miranda Cook went down, scored again. So now you're in that now you kind of see where I'm going with this, where
Mm-hmm.
you know, each team is scoring on just about every single possession. Now Old Orchard's opened up that buffer where, Lake Region scores again. It's still a one possession game. So Old Orchard went down, of course, scored again, two possession game again. They actually got a stop, and then they went up
Lake
three
Region did?
possessions.
Oh, Orchard Beach.
Old Orchard did on defense. They got a stop, and then went ahead three possessions. And twice in the ball game, Old Orchard was up by three possessions. So maybe the final score wasn't exactly indicative of how the actual game was. But
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you what, all props to Lake Region because they never showed any signs of quitting in that game. You
So you're
get
saying
down,
maybe more of a backdoor cover?
yeah, yeah, and you get down three possessions. Maybe some teams are like, well, we tried, boys, but no, Lake
Yeah.
Region never gave up. They went down, scored, got to a two possession game. Then they got to stop late in the um, second quarter, and then they went down and scored again, and they were going to get the second half kickoff. So they went down,
Okay.
scored. They went down, scored with about 27 seconds left. One possession game, and so Old Orchard kneels it down to get it to halftime. On the opening kickoff of the second half, it was a weird kind of kick. It was Old Orchard low line drive kick, kind of into no man's land. The guy who ended up receiving the kick kind of hesitated a little bit, thinking it was going to go out of bounds. It didn't.
Uh-oh.
He picked it up late. Old Orchard got there. He fumbled it. Old Orchard recovers the fumble on the opening kickoff, and that kind of then you go back into that pattern of Old Orchard was then set up at the Lake Region 27. Two plays they were in the end zone.
That's a layup for them, yeah.
Yeah, just about. So it was more or less the same throughout the second half, which really dragged on. I mean, I want to say the second half was probably almost 90 minutes in itself. I mean,
Well,
it
let
was
me
a
ask you this.
long.
Did it actually drag on, or are you just used to the Old Orchard Beach games being in running time in the second quarter?
That's probably a big part of it. It felt
You're
like
like,
it
they just
dragged
keep
on.
stopping the clock. What is going on?
Stopping the clock at Old Orchard Beach in the second half. What is
Like,
this sorcery? What are we
what are we
doing here?
doing?
But there was a drive late that kind of gave Lake Region a chance. This is what gave Lake Region a chance. Old Orchard trying to kill time in the fourth quarter. This is a two possession game at this point. We're
Okay.
getting late in the fourth. Two possession game. Old Orchard's driving. Wes Gallant, who I just talked about a little while ago, breaks free for this run that would have, in essence, set them up to put the game away. He got inside the 5 yard line, first down run, doing what he's been doing all game long. And then I don't know if you heard about this, but there was, um, and this is a little bit in part to Old Orchard's youth. They have a lot of sophomores. They have a lot of freshmen that get a lot of minutes.
Hmm.
There was after that play was over, there was some extracurricular activity between a couple other from from some linemen and a little bit of that. Um,
Yeah.
it resulted in two Old Orchard Beach ejections on a pair of unsportsmanlike conduct penalties. Now, one of them was one of their wide receivers who's a sophomore. He picked up an unsportsmanlike in the first half, and that was his second,
Okay.
so he was gone then. And then they had a senior lineman who now Reese and I didn't see exactly what happened. We were looking at the replay from that run,
Mm-hmm.
This all happened while we're looking at the replay. Flags came flying in, all this and that. One of Old Orchard's from what Coach Plant explained to me after the game, is that somebody from Lake Region started it, and then it was the guy from Old Orchard who, in response, who got flagged for it. And
That's
unfortunately,
usually how it works.
it's usually always the second guy who gets caught, and
Mm-hmm.
which is unfortunate, but it's the way it is most of the time. So he got disqualified. So there's two 15-yard penalties. So instead of it being first and goal at the 5-yard line, all of a sudden it's first and goal all the way. And this was it was from the spot of the foul, which occurred back near the 10. So all of a sudden it's first and goal from the 35. And
It's not a
so,
lot of plays in the book for that one.
no, there is not. So Old Orchard ended up punting it. They didn't do it. They didn't try to do anything fancy. They ended up punting. And Lake Region in 4 or 5
How often
plays.
does Old Orchard Beach punt?
That might be the first time I've ever seen that team punt the football in
I
person.
was gonna say,
Usually Old Orchard.
do they have a
football and
punter?
punting. Oh man, who punted for them? It might have been one of their wide receivers that ended up doing it.
They're just like, who here can kick the ball? Like walking up and down the sideline. Anybody here can kick the ball? No, maybe.
But so anyway, Lake Region in 4 plays marched down the field, scored, and now Old Orchard didn't convert on a couple of touchdowns because they always go for 2.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Well, they don't even have a
convert.
punter. How are they gonna have a
Right.
kicker?
Exactly. So they always go for 2. They didn't convert on a couple of scores earlier in the second half. So Lake Region scoring, they got the 2-pointer, which made it a 6-point ball game. So all Lake Region needed to do was try to recover an onside kick, which they had done earlier in the fourth quarter.
Okay.
They recovered an onside kick, got the ball back, marched down the field and scored. They almost got it this time. They didn't, and all Old Orchard had to do was just pick up a first down and seal the game. But it was, I think, Andrew Hart from MaineHighSchoolFootball.com messaged me after I sent him the final score. He messaged me that 114 combined points ties, I think it's like ties 4th most all time in
Oh
Maine
wow.
in 8-man history for points scored. And that ties, I think it was Mananock and Holton that scored 114 combined points in a game that went to overtime.
Wow.
And this
Did
one
he say
didn't
who
need
had the
overtime.
most?
He didn't tell me who had the most. He just told me that tied 4th all time.
Get it together, Andrew. Come on.
I'm sure if I messaged him right now, he would get back to me and tell me.
He would probably get back to you before we got to Class B.
Yeah, probably.
I bet. Yeah. So 60-54. I saw that score come across, and by come across, one of the Old Orchard Beach coaches sent it to me, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I went to the wrong game." Because I had been thinking about going to that, because that did look like the best game on the schedule, and for a couple reasons, 2 reasons I didn't go. One, I get very, very tired by the end of the week. And so I was like, I slept in a little bit. And then also I knew I was going to be talking to you today. And I'm like, well, there's no point in going to the same game as that Ethan's going to be covering, because Ethan's going to be on the podcast. And so, what's the point of that? I did have a question come up earlier this year about Old Orchard Beach. And I thought Ethan would know this, but you were on your vision quest up in Alaska, or, in Siberia, building a cave in the woods. I don't know, whatever you're doing, sending up smoke signals. And the question was, how late is the arcade open in the year? Does it go year round? And how late into the year are their pier fries? And like, how much of Old Orchard Beach shuts down and when?
Man, that is an excellent question. I'm not 100% sure on that. I know on my drive through Old Orchard, it did look like it was pretty well buttoned up for the winter. I know it was a little temperature actually wasn't too bad, but I don't know about you, but it
was a beautiful day.
A beautiful day on Saturday. But I know for some people it's still a little bit chilly to be going and get some pier fries. So
is it ever too cold for pier fries?
I mean, for me, it's never too cold for ice cream, so I don't think it's ever too cold for pier fries.
All right, we'll have to check with the Old Orchard Beach coaches, because I'm sure they know.
Oh,
how
100%.
late in the year we can get pier fries. Because that's always my running joke during basketball season. It's like, oh, if you're playing at Old Orchard Beach, pier fry, you win there, you get pier fries for the whole team as opposed to ice cream. You know, maybe some fried dough,
Ooh,
maybe some rides. Maybe some skee-ball. It's a good time.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's look at 8-man South. So in the South, Old Orchard Beach is now 6-0, and then Telstar and Sacapee Valley are 3-2 and 3-3. Um, Now Telstar, yeah, that's the team that put up 86 on Mountain View, right? I'm remembering that
Yep,
correctly.
that is correct.
Do you want to fire off any hot takes about 86 to nothing?
I
You
mean,
you're an expert at watching 86 to
yeah,
nothing
I
games.
mean, the amount of times I've seen Old Orchard Beach put up, 60, between anywhere in the high 60s to low 80s. I mean, I've seen they put up anywhere between that in the last 3 years that I've covered them. And
Hmm.
there gets to a point when you're a program as dominant as Old Orchard, or you're going up against a much, an opponent that's not even near the level that you are. There's only so much that you can do
Hmm.
until it just becomes downright, I think, disrespectful for both teams. I mean, if you go out there and just kneel it down for the entirety of the second half, I mean, that's not fun. That's not, in a way, to me, I don't think that's very respectful to your opponent. It's not really respectful to
Yeah,
yourselves. It's not really. I mean, it's not really respectful for anybody if you're just going out there and just kneeling the ball down. I mean, if you're
and it's
and for a program like Mountain View, from what I've heard, it's a struggling program right now. Unfortunately, it's the way it is. They barely even had enough to field an 8-man team at the varsity level.
hmm
And when you're a program, so when you're going up against something like that, I mean, you all you can do at that point as a coach is to get all the guys who are super young, don't have, are trying to get more experience, throw them in there and just play their game plan. And
yep.
if you run if unfortunately if the score gets run up because of that, doing that, the score runs up, and unfortunately it's just the way it is. And like I said, I think, to me, it's just downright disrespectful to all involved if all you do is just kneel the ball down for run out for a majority of a half in a
Or if
situation
you
like
play
that.
half speed or something,
Right, or half speed, or yeah, something like to that. It
which
helps
I
nobody.
in thinking about it, I think maybe in football it's a little more dangerous to do that than it would be in basketball, because in basketball you can sort of pass the ball 5 times and you can do all this other stuff, but the team that's losing 86 to nothing is still going to try to hit you pretty hard.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
And if you're not, playing hard, then bad things can happen there.
right, and I know from experience that if you're on a these are kids, these are high school kids, and I know from experience that as a high school boy, you don't make all the smartest decisions in the world, and
What?
especially on a football field.
What?
If you're on unfortunately have to be on the if you're on the receiving end of a game like that, you're going to be frustrated, and you might do some things that you might regret later on.
I will have you
And
know, and my parents will vouch for this, that I never, ever, ever did anything wrong when I was a teenage boy. Never. And I'm sure you didn't either.
absolutely not. Just don't ask this one kid from John Baptist how his nose felt one day. Don't ask him. I don't think he was feeling too hot after that one single day. But that's not here. That's neither here nor there.
All right. So let's say we can write off Mount View here. And I'm looking at the crab trees on Andrew's site, which is an essential site. It looks like it's down to Booth Bay and Trape for that last playoff spot. And Trape's played an extra game. Do you want that playoff spot?
Man,
If the arcade's going to be closed and there's no fried dough and you can't play skee ball after the game, do you want to drive down to Old Orchard Beach to get waxed?
I think it's certainly I think it's certainly a tough decision to say. I mean, like, I believe I believe it was Old Orchard and Booth Bay in the semifinal a year ago, 1-4
Yeah,
semifinal,
last
and
year they
last
played.
year, yeah,
They played last year.
yeah, they played last year in that game, and unfortunately it didn't go. And then unfortunately for Booth Bay, it didn't go their way. I think they went down there, and that was about what they expected. And then Trait, kind of the same
Hmm.
deal. I mean, I'm looking at, and they have yet to play Old Orchard. They play Old Orchard on Saturday afternoon. Old Orchard makes the trip down to Kittery, but I would expect more of the same because
Yeah, it reminds me
Orchard's,
of
yeah.
in basketball season we had a 8-9 play-in game to get not even a prelim. It was just a tiebreaker game. No, it wasn't 8-9. I forget what it was. Anyway, it was the winner got a road prelim, and I think it was I want to say it was Ashland and Van Buren, and the winner got a 5-hour one-way trip to Jonesport Beals to to get smoked. And I'm just imagining being the parent of like the kid who's like the eighth man and being like, "Kid, I love you, but I hope you lose because a Tuesday evening 10-hour round trip to Jonesport Beals does not sound fun."
No, especially on a school night. No, thank you. I
Yeah,
thought making a trip up to Guilford on a school night was bad from Blue Hill, let alone a trip from
yeah,
Ashland to Jonesport, Beals, and back and on a school night. No, 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 no.
yeah. I think you take the next day off. I think
Hmm.
you call in sick
Yeah.
with that one. All right, so let's head over to the north. Stearns is 5-1. Orono and Dexter are 4-2. Stearns lost to Old Orchard Beach in a game that was close at the half earlier this year. I think it was 18-16 at the half before Old Orchard Beach pulled away. And then you've got Dexter. Dexter has a big game this week. Who are they playing? But it's this T-Mobile thing. Have you heard about this? You've heard obviously about the T-Mobile
Yeah,
thing.
that's a really
But
cool deal for. First of all, that's a really cool deal for Dexter. I mean, to be able to represent, not only are they representing themselves, but they're representing the whole state of Maine as well. And you know just as much as I
mhm,
do, anything like that to happen in the state of Maine is just the coolest thing in the world. So
is awesome.
so happy for Dexter. I voted numerous times for him, and no matter how it works out, they should be very proud of themselves for being in the national spotlight like this because that's one of the coolest things you're going to see all year.
Yeah, so I had Dexter's AD on the podcast, and he was telling me that this week they're having T-Mobile is like hosting a game, and they're like painting the magenta numbers on the field, and there's going to be all sorts of stuff. That's against Holton on Saturday, so that looks like it could be a very, very cool event. I'm strongly leaning towards driving up for that because I mean, it sounds like it's going to be bananas.
Yeah, I actually saw there's actually photos up somewhere shared by somebody on some social media.
I think
I think it
Mark
was Mark.
from
Yeah, I
Eastern
think
Maine
it was
Sports
Mark who
has them up.
shared it. But they got the number. They got the yard markers for the numbers all. They're all magentaed out
Hmm.
already, and they got some other things all set ready to go too. Which I don't know for doing that. I mean, I don't know. I guess the grass isn't growing very much this time of year anyway. But for me to do that on a Monday for a Saturday game, I think is my opinion is a little bit early. But then again, what do I know? But
Depends on the rain,
yeah,
really. Depends on the weather
yeah, that's
forecast.
all. That's true. And of course, it has been super dry this fall. So, but anyway,
Hmm.
not the point. It looked really really good.
You're like, I don't know about this scheduling of the painting of the grass. I have questions.
this is this is
T-Mobile.
where I ask my this is these are where the important questions come from.
We got to know about the pier fries. We got to know about the schedule of the grass painting of the field up in Dexter. Really important stuff. Really important. Okay, so
Look at here.
Dexter's 4-2 along with Orono. Did you lose me
No,
for
I
a
got
minute?
you. I was looking to see who was they were playing. Looks like the Holton co-op
Yeah, they have
I think is
Holton.
coming to town. So that's gonna be should be a very cool game for. I'm trying to count the schools: Holton, Hodgson, Southern Rustic, Greater Holton Christian. So, however many students from each of those schools are represented on that team, should be a very fun event for them as well. It's a road team.
Oh
Even
yeah.
as a road team going into somebody else's event like that, that's still going to be super cool. So that'll be a fun experience for them.
Yeah. I imagine it's really cool. Like anytime there's one of those pink out games, for basketball, I bet it's probably a lot of fun to be the other
Yeah,
team, you know? So anyway, so we got Dexter 4-2. I mean, that'll be a big game for Dexter for seeding. And I would think they're in pretty good shape for a playoff spot. But if Washington Academy gets hot here down the stretch, that could
and
get
I'm
tricky.
looking to. And one of the things I will say about this new MPA site, Lucas and I were talking. For those at home, him and I were talking before before we really got into the stuff here. But I haven't gotten the chance to really check out the new website yet. But what I do like is that right on the main standings page, you can see the wins, the losses, and who they got remaining without even having to go to any other page. So that's nice. And I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
at the schedules here.
I mean, you can also do that on my
Yeah,
site, so we'll just
this is
mention
true. Um,
just mention that.
but yeah, there's a chance here for a lot of movement. WA, they've got Orono and Madawaska left, and if they can get a win, if they can get a win over Orono, I mean that good chance that'll punch their ticket into that final spot. But you got Bucksport
Mm-hmm.
who's hanging right in there, Dexter who's in a really good spot with Holton and Spruce Mountain coming up, and Spruce Mountain sits at 4-1 right now in the South 8-man large division. So that's a lot of teams, couple of opponents that have a decent amount of wins to their names. So even just one win in the last two games for Dexter, for Bucksport, Washington Academy, that's you're
Mm-hmm.
talking three teams fighting for two spots, and then you throw in Orono with WA and Bucksport as well. Could be a lot of movement between those four teams for those final three spots in the final 2 weeks. It'll be very interesting to
Yeah,
watch.
I can't really judge Crabtrees in my head yet. I haven't quite gotten the hang of that, but I feel like Washington Academy could play their way in, or do they need help? Four teams for or five teams for four spots is tricky because there's any number of combinations of things that could happen here. But I think Stearns is a lock.
Yeah, Stearns.
I think that's
I
pretty
think
safe to say.
Stearns is feeling really, really good about their chances to get that one seed. I mean, they're one loss to an Old Orchard Beach team that's undefeated. I mean, and of course the Crabtree is your winning percentage and has everything to do with your winning percentage and your opponent's winning percentage. Well, Stearns has got a decent winning percentage right now, and then you look at I mean, they're getting carried a lot by Old Orchard 6-0. And then I'm looking at the rest of them here.
Mm-hmm.
Orono 4 wins, Bucksport's 3 wins, and Dexter's four wins. So I mean, just those right there. You got to be feeling really good about your chances at that point.
Yeah, so let's move to 8-man large and a school that probably wishes we were using heel points this week in Gray New Gloucester. G&G knocked off Camden, who was previously unbeaten, 16-6, which is one of those scores that threw up a whoa, and then I got a bunch of text messages after I probably tweeted about the whoa element of it, because so what I'm told here, and I've heard it from enough people that I'm pretty sure this is what happened, is the Camden was at 5-0, pretty much locked up the 1 seed, and went, we're a little banged up. We were the 1 seed last year, and we were really banged up. We didn't have our starting quarterback. We're going to go pretty deep into the bench here, and Gray New Gloucester was able to benefit from that. But that would have been a huge heel point win for them, sitting at 2-3 at the time and in 5th place. And now they're still sitting in 5th place at 3-3, but it's a lot closer.
Yeah, hey, I mean, it's one of those. It all goes back to that class of saying you play I mean, you play the opponent that you got, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're playing
Mm-hmm.
the bench, second stringers or not. I mean, you're going to take them, and you get a win, you get a win, and that's a huge help for them. And right now they're in almost a neck and neck battle with Lake Region for that last playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at Lake Region's remaining schedule. Oh, look at that! Those two teams play each other this week. That's going to be a huge game.
Beautiful. So that might sort it
Very
out right
well,
there.
good. You have both teams 3-3. Lake Region, obviously they're desperate for a win at this point. They got off to a really good start, 3-0, and then
Mm-hmm.
they ran into some. They run into three straight quality.
That's
Yeah,
a
three
rough
straight
schedule.
quality opponents. You have Yarmouth, who's been on the up and up. They're 5-1. Mount Ararat, Mount
Hmm.
Ararat, who lost in the state title game last year, and they're right back in the mix, 5-1. And then everybody,
And nearly beat a
yeah,
full strength
yeah,
Camden team.
and nearly beat a full strength Camden team. So that's a really, really. But Greater Gloucester's got to be playing with a lot of confidence going into that game with Lake Region, and
Hmm.
Lake Region, obviously they're desperate for a win, three straight losses, so that's going to be a very, very interesting contest. Let me check real quick. Is that in? And that's up in Naples at Lake Region. So Lake Region on Friday night. So that's going to be a.
Think so.
Hopefully, we'll see if Naples is going to be rocking Friday night. Hopefully.
Lake Region at
Oh, it's at
GNG.
GNG. Am I reading this wrong?
It's at
Oh, okay. I see
GNG.
what's going on. I see
Maybe.
what's going on here. Okay, I'm looking.
And then
I'm
okay, so
looking at this
let's.
on the MPA site, and of course they got the little house next to the home team, but I don't know if it's because of the length of
Hmm.
stuff, because it's the house is kind of in a.
Oh yeah, if it's a long one,
Yeah,
it gets a little
that's a
wonky.
little wonky. So actually, it might be at Gray, but regardless,
Yeah, it's
it
at
is
Gray.
at Gray. Okay, so Gray's going to be rocking Friday night.
Then over in large man, Camden is 5-1. MDI and Holton are both 3-3. Holton's going to Dexter this week. And then, do we think Waterville's done, or can they get by Ellsworth for the honor of playing
Man,
Camden?
I'm looking at the remaining schedule for. I mean, each team only has one game left, according to. Oh, excuse me. Waterville's got two games left. Ellsworth has one left. So
Waterville has Yarmouth and GNG, and who's the other
Ellsworth's
one?
got Mount
Ellsworth,
Ararat.
Mount Ararat. Am I missing something here on my heels? Yeah, I'm missing something. I have an incorrect score
Ah,
somewhere here. Okay. Waterville's 0-6. I have Ellsworth at 2-4, and with only one game left. Okay. Note to self: check Ellsworth. This is why. This is how I find mistakes, because you're not going to believe this, but I'm not often looking at Ellsworth's schedule. Just at work, in between things, I'm like, oh, I wonder who Ellsworth's got left. This is how I find it. Or someone says to me, "Hey, our schedule's wrong," and I'm like, "Who are you?" And they're like, "Ellsworth," and I go, "Well," I look and I go, "Oh yeah, that's what's wrong."
but going back to it, I believe right now the way it stands, I think Ellsworth's going to be feeling really good about getting that final spot. I mean, I look at Waterville's remaining schedule, unless Yarmouth or GNG, well, probably not GNG, but if Yarmouth decides they're in a similar spot to what Camden is, they're sitting at 5-1. Feel like
Hmm.
we're in a good spot right now. If we're a little banged up, maybe we'll rest some guys. Maybe Waterville could catch a break there, but oh man, it's a tough schedule coming up for Waterville, and they're gonna have to win one of those last two games if they want to. I think if they're gonna have a chance to get that forward. Again, like you, I'm not
Oh
my knowledge base when it comes to trying to fully grasp the Crabtree standings is not quite there. But when it comes, but
yeah,
when you're winning, I know the higher your winning percentage is, the better chance you got. I know, right? Pretty quite the concepts.
hey, if you win,
Yeah.
that's good. It's always good to win. I'm sure there's a scenario like in heel points where it benefits you to lose. So Ellsworth does only play 7
Okay.
games. That's
Interesting.
strange. They have a bye this week. Huh, I wonder why they only play 7 games.
I think something that Andrew has said was that because of the number of 8-man teams, it sorted out that some were going to get a bye and some wouldn't, or something along those lines. So
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so I think that's good on 8-man. Let's move over. You want to go up or down in class? You want to go A to D or
let's
D to
go.
A?
Let's start in A. I don't mind starting in A. I feel like
Okay.
A, from what I've seen out of Class A, seems to be as far as the teams at the top, it seems to be pretty straightforward. But a little bit further down, it could get a little bit more
Yeah.
wonky.
Yeah. So Portland's still in first place in the North, and I could not have less confidence in a team that's in first place right now. They got absolutely, where's the score? They got destroyed by Thornton Academy. Like, I drove all the way down there, and it was over before I got there. And I got there early. And then I thought they would have trouble with Bonny Eagle, and Bonny Eagle beat them 34-7. And based solely on that, it's really hard for me to think that they're going to repeat. And now I'm going to have Portland people mad at me. But unless they've got some injuries that I don't know about, because they did not seem to be in the same class as Thornton Academy, watching them live.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of comes with, having a really successful senior class the year before, right? I mean, sometimes that can take a lot to,
Mm-hmm.
it can take when you graduate as much talent as they did last year, it could take a year or two to build that. Right,
And they lost their coach.
and Sean Green stepped down as well, so that could be a whole, that could lead to a lot of change. And yeah, they're sitting at the top of the standings right now. We know Portland historically has always been a really, really good football school. But as you mentioned, 4-2, will they be the ones? Will they be the one seed in A North? Possibly. Depends on how the rest of the schedule goes. But you look at it's just one of the,
Yeah.
it's one of those deals where we've seen it a lot in the lower classes in recent years, right? Where you have one team
Mm-hmm.
in one region that's top of the region, feeling good, really good, and then you go to the other side of the state, and you see the top team there, and there's just such a difference. And we all
Well, that was the Class
Class
C
C,
thing for
right there,
years.
Class C until they went to the full. Well, I know we'll get to it. We'll get to C here in a little bit, but
Oh,
we'll
we're
get
getting
there
to
in a
Class
little bit.
C.
But yeah, we saw it in C. We saw it in Class C for years, and even we saw it in Class C for years, and even in D, we've sometimes have seen it as well. And in Class A, of course, Class A was the one statewide class for a while, and then some teams
Mm-hmm.
were in different spots and all that. But that also just got to give big props to. I know we'll get to the South Side in a second, but yeah, hats off to Thornton too for keeping that program as successful as they have.
Yeah. So Portland finishes with, they have Lewis, they're at Lewis, and they're at Exeter, and I never know what to expect from a New Hampshire game. And then they've got South Portland. The one team that looks interesting to me, just looking around, poking around in A North here, is Oxford Hills. Nearly beat Coney. Already lost to Portland early in the season, but they're finishing with Deering, Wyndham, and Bangor. And that's, if they're going to make a move, that's a schedule where it's not impossible. Right now they're sitting in third. You could talk me into them running the table there. Because I just don't know what to expect from Bangor either. And I don't know, maybe is that a sleeping giant or a dark horse or whatever you want to use in A North? Sitting 3-3, and they are in third in the Crabtrees. And I never know if I'm supposed to be looking at the Crabtree Weekly or the Crabtree Classic. And I know they just converge. By the end of the season, they're just going to converge. And I know the difference between them, and I know how they're calculated and all that. I just never know which one I should trust.
Yeah, I
more.
get what you're saying.
Does that make sense? Yeah, I don't. I haven't made a decision on which one I like more.
Yeah, me.
Andrew's just like tearing his hair out. Listening
For what
to
hair
this.
he's got left.
What hair he's got left? He's just ripping it out in chunks.
But Andrew, if you want, I'll love here, boss. We love the work that you do. But no, Oxford Hills. I mean, I'm looking at their remaining schedule as well, and I think there's definitely a realistic chance that they realistically they can get the two. And depending on how Portland's how Portland's remaining of the schedule goes, you said they mentioned they have Exeter coming up. I saw I was yeah
Portland does, yeah.
I saw when Exeter came to Fitzpatrick Stadium last fall. Portland, of course, that was when obviously Portland was we all know how good Portland was last year. They hung around with Exeter for a while, but Exeter eventually pulled away. Now we know we're kind of where Portland's at this year. I imagine Exeter's historically has always been one of the top teams in their division in New Hampshire. So,
Hmm.
and obviously they play the games on turf. We don't play them on paper, but gotta like Exeter's chances in that one. And then you throw in Lewiston and South Portland. So just looking right, they
They
should
should
beat
beat
Lewiston.
Lewiston.
South
Yeah.
Portland could go. South Portland could probably go either way. You never know, and with a rivalry there. I believe that game
Yeah.
is at Fitzpatrick Stadium. It's on the I believe that's on the north side of the bridge this year. Um, but
It is.
all right.
Yes. It's at Fitzy.
Um, But so there you go, right there. So it's going to be very. I'd say Oxford Hills is in the best spot to definitely get the 2, possibly get the 1, but they got to make sure that they take care of business on their end too. Deering, that could be a Deering big game.
Hmm.
Wyndham, that should be a win for them. And then that last game of the regular season on Halloween night against Bangor,
Ooh,
that could very well
spooky.
be for the number 2 seed. Could be for the 1
Could
seed
be
as
for the
well. We
one
never
seed.
know.
I think. All right, so let's move over to the South. I'm just gonna say off the top that the model was high on Bonny Eagle really fast, so much so that I was like, "Whoa, what's this then?" And is it overreacting to something? And I don't think it is overreacting to anything. It had them number 1 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, maybe before Thornton Academy beat Portland, and they are still number 1 in the power rankings, and they've increased their lead. So I just want to say that if Bonny Eagle is for real, then the model was on it early. And can I just tell you can I do a slight model brag and just of how, because football's tricky because there's so few games, right? And so let me see if I can find this. I have a running total going on my computer here. If I can find it. Okay. So week 1, it got games correct at 64%. Week 2, 69%. Week 3, 58%. Okay, not great. Then it seems to have figured it out. Week 4, 79%. Week 5, 87%. Week 6, 82%. So I think it's dialed in. I think. It's gotten a couple games wrong. It got the G&G Camden game wrong. What are you going to do? Some stuff like that. But I think, I'm buying stock on Bonny Eagle. And I'm very much looking forward to Bonny Eagle Thornton Academy.
That
When is
is,
that?
yep, next
Next week?
Friday night, 24th. Yeah, that's gonna.
Okay. I think
Yeah,
that
that
might be
might
game of
be.
the day.
And I've been fortunate enough to see Bonnie Eagle a few times in person the past couple of years. Working with Rob Kennedy and um, Jared Richmond, they've gone out. They made a couple trips to Bonnie Eagle the past few falls to cover a game or two down there, and so Bonnie Eagle's been
Mm-hmm.
that is
Is
on their
that on their
schedule. You can
schedule this
watch that
year?
game on WHOU.live next Friday night.
Oh. Well, look at that. WHOU.live. Get your
Absolutely.
subscription now.
Still only $10 a month, by the way. It's definitely worth the price.
A wicked bargain.
But I mean, so I've been fortunate to see kind of what Bonnie Eagles look like over the past couple of years, and they've always my interpretation of the Scots has always been they're this close to taking that next
Mm-hmm.
step and to beating and being on the level of Thornton Academy. I think last year they lost to Noble in the semifinals, um, but they've been right
That sounds
there
right.
with they've been just a step behind Thornton. Obviously, they haven't played each other yet. We're going to see just about where they are with Thornton Academy here next Friday night. But I think if there's any year where Bonnie Eagle is going to return to the top dog in A South, this will be that year. But it's all going to depend on how that game next Friday goes.
I mean, they've only given
That's
up
huge.
27 points. And let's not sleep on Noble here. Noble lost the Fitzpatrick winner and Mr. Basketball winner and is 5-1. So, I mean, I don't know what sort of I don't even know who the coach is. I don't know what sort of coaching job they're doing there, but they're doing something right. Because you lose a talent like Jameer Rose and you're 5-1. I don't care what your
Yeah, they
schedule
only
is. That's
lost to, and I'm
impressive.
looking at the scores here. They only lost to Bonny Eagle 18-0. Yeah, they got shut out, but you only gave up 18 points to a Bonny Eagle team that's looked really good offensively. So that's not that is that
Hmm.
if we're gonna bring this up, but like if I'm thinking about quality losses, like we're the college football playoff committee here, but if we're talking quality losses, I'd certainly call that a
Hmm.
quality loss, especially with the way Bonny Eagles defense has been this year. And then you lose your Fitzpatrick winner at quarterback, and you're still 5-1. That's your only loss, 18-0. That's nothing to be ashamed about. And then they went ahead and beat Marshwood, and then they just beat Sanford the other night. So, for Noble, that's going to be, they got to be feeling really good about their chances. They certainly, for me, would be a sleeper in A South, where right now it's shaping up to be the Thornton and Bonny Eagle show. Don't sleep on Noble.
Yeah. So a Noble, whoever, let's say Noble stays 3. Um, you know, even like just looking at how close the Crabtrees are, you really want the 1 seed there because there's the classic thing of you want to be the 1 so you can get the 4, and you don't want to have to be in the 2-3 game and then beat the 1 to get to the state game. You want the slightly easier semifinal game. And so for that semifinal, South Portland, Scarborough, Massabesic are just clustered right there. Their Crabtrees are within, what is that, 17 of each other, the 3 of them,
Yeah,
depending on
that's
which
yeah,
Crabtree you're
that's
looking
about
at.
right.
Yeah, so they're right there. So that's 3 teams playing for 1 spot, and I guess Sanford's still alive there. So that's 4 teams playing for 1 spot.
Yeah, most certainly not I think any of those last four teams in A South could certainly put it together. I mean, even Sanford, who's right now 7th place, currently sits what I'm looking at just about 16 behind South Portland. That's an easy deficit to make up. They have Thornton
Hmm.
Academy this week. They got Marshwood and they got Massabesic to end out the season. So for Sanford, not out of the question about possibly sneaking in and getting that 4 seed, but with Massabesic, I'm looking at what Massabesic got left. They got Bonny Eagle. They got Bonny Eagle, South Portland, Sanford. Scarborough's got South Portland, Noble, Bonny Eagle. That's a tough end of the season. And South Portland, Scarborough.
So Massabesic has the 5th hardest schedule in the state remaining. Scarborough has the hardest.
Yeah,
Good luck, guys. Sanford has the 10th hardest. And
South
who else am I
Portland.
looking
Yep.
for? South Portland? South Portland's probably going to be up a little bit more. South Portland has the 25th hardest. So if we're going just on that, I feel like maybe South Portland's got the edge
Yeah,
because it's going to, getting your own wins or, for the Crabtree,
yeah,
that half of the Crabtree is going to be
yeah.
huge.
And with Scarborough, Massabesic, Portland in that order to wrap up the season. That's South Portland is currently sitting in the 4. By the way, big win, big defensive win for them over Deering the other night. That was a big game for them. It was a low. That was a game that was Rob and Jared's game of the week for this week, and they scored when they needed to. It wasn't always pretty, but they got the scores when they needed to, and they scored
Mm-hmm.
late, pretty late because it was scoreless at the. It was no, it wasn't scoreless at the half. It was 2-0 at the half. 2-0 at the half. One of the teams, somebody got a safety. I think, yeah, bring in the closer. Two
Bring in
nothing
the
at the
closer.
half, and then Deering drove down, scored, and then South Portland scored, and I think they scored again to put that away. So it was it was 16 to
16 to
7.
7 was the
So
final.
it was a defensive battle for sure, but a big win for South Portland, one that they needed. And right now they're currently sitting in that final playoff spot in A South. So it's going to be, I would definitely say they're in the best. If any of those teams were to control was in the best spot, they controlled their own destiny. It would definitely be South Portland. With 1, they're already there, and 2, they got the easiest schedule out of the remaining 4 teams in A South.
Okay, so let's move over to B. I have a quick programming note or a note from a B assistant coach that I got during the Levitt Gardner game. Let the algorithm know we are so banged up. So I love it when
That's
coaches just
awesome.
send me stuff like
I
that.
love that.
Like, I love when coaches are looking at the rankings and they're like, either they're mad about how low they are, or my favorite is when they're like,
Way
we're too
too
high,
high.
man. We're way
Way
too
too
high.
high.
We're not this good. Um, or when they're like, here's the reason why we are struggling for this, and I feel like it's safe to share that because so banged up is it's football. People get banged
Yep.
up. It is what it is. You can only play
Hmm.
with the guys who can get on the field. So Falmouth lost this week to Marshwood 33-28. They've had a bunch of close games. Like their losses are I don't think there's a bad loss in there. They're not dominating like last year because they're so banged up. They're 3-3. They have a loss 14-10 to Kennebunk, 28-21 at Greeley, and then Marshwood 33-28. So, and then their wins have been pretty dominant. This week 2 win against Westbrook is looking a lot better than it did then. 26-7, Gorham 41-17, and then Biddeford 38-0. So let me ask you this, Ethan. Assuming Falmouth gets less banged up, can they repeat? And well, I guess they wouldn't be repeating in B South. Can they win B
Oh
South
man,
and keep
I
their
think it's
their
definitely
defense
possible. I
alive?
mean, it's
I'm putting you
definitely
on the
a
spot.
really good possibility, and the biggest thing is going to be, can they get healthy in time? That's the big question for them. Can they get
Mm-hmm.
healthy in time? And I'm looking at you just went down their all three of their losses. All have been by one score, and all have been to really good opponents. And two of those,
Mm-hmm.
and two
Yeah.
of them are in their division. One of them Class C, but and one of them one of the top teams in Class C right now. We'll get there, but I definitely
Oh, and we'll definitely get to
but
Greeley.
Falmouth shouldn't be stressing too much. I mean, I look at what they got left. Freiburg, and they finished off the season with Chevrolet, who sits right above them. And Chevrolet, those two teams last year, it was a low scoring game. It was a very low scoring game between Falmouth and Chevrolet. So it'll be an
Mm-hmm.
interesting end of the final stretch for Falmouth. But if they can get themselves healthy, I'd say they have just as good of a chance as Kennebunk and just as good of a chance as Westbrook or Marshwood or any of those top four teams right now. They've got just as good of a chance as any of them if they can get healthy.
And Westbrook had one of the surprise wins of the season, not of the week, rather, not that they won because they're 5-1, and it's never a huge surprise when a 5-1 team wins. But they shut out Kennebunk. I think it was 20-0. And that was what game was I at? Whatever game I was at when that happened. That was the one where people were showing each other their phones and going, what's happening here? Because Kennebunk had been undefeated, had been really cruising along. What I heard was that Westbrook got a couple short fields, and then Kennebunk had trouble getting going and playing catch up. So for whatever that's worth, but yeah, Kennebunk 5-1, Westbrook 5-1, Marshwood and Chevrolet both 4-2, Falmouth 3-3, and I think we can write off Biddeford and Gorham. I think
Yeah.
we can start getting ready for basketball season. So, but that is actually, one of those teams is going to have to play a playoff game.
Is it top
So,
is it top six in B
one of
is
Biddeford and
top six in B
Gorham,
South this year? Okay.
it's top 6. So there's 2 buys. So, but I don't think it would probably be hard for Falmouth to get the bye. Let's assume Kennebunk and Westbrook get the buys. Although Marshwood's pretty close. So then it's a question of what side of the bracket do you want to be on and all that. But yeah, somebody's going to be a sacrificial lamb at 6. So if you're not going to get the bye, you definitely want to get to 3 here. If you can get to 3. Because it's a much easier first round game.
I would much rather get what will be most likely a 2-win team at the 6th seed, because Biddeford and Gorham play each other this week. So that's going to be a 2-win team at the 6th seed, most likely a 2-win team at the 6th seed. I'd rather as a 3 seed, I would much rather get that at home, whereas I got to play and then and then if I was and I guess in that case it would be Westbrook. I would much rather that would be the matchup I would rather get is whoever would win that
Mhm.
6-3. Most likely would be the three. No disrespect to anybody, of course, but also I think the right now
Mhm.
Chevrolet Falmouth and then the winner would go to Kennebunk. That might be like the gauntlet side of the bracket right now. As if obviously the playoffs would start today, so a lot of time left. But to me, that'd be like the gauntlet side of the bracket.
Mhm.
Kennebunk, who beat Chev, it took overtime to beat Chevrolet a few weeks back. And then you throw in Falmouth, who, as we just talked about, if they could get healthy at the right time, I'd say they're just as yeah. You're not going to want them if
You
they're
don't want
a
them.
healthy team peaking at the right time, right at the start of the postseason. B South very well could shape up to be anybody in that top 4 or 5 could step up and win that region.
Yeah. Yeah, you could talk me to into anyone in the top 5 winning that whole thing. If it's all, and it might just be about matchups, it might be about who's healthy, and it's football. It's, we I think forget it sometimes that you get a penalty in the wrong spot, the ball bounces the wrong way, 7 points, 14-point swing. It's not like basketball where you have, 2 or 3 bad plays don't doom you. All right, so let's look at B North. Coney has been incredible. There's no other way to put it. And I feel bad for Rob Kennedy because he was very high on this idea of Coney and Gardner being 7-0 and playing in, I think we were calling it the Rob Kennedy Bowl in the final week of the season, but Gardner lost to Levitt, and so the dream of the Rob Kennedy Bowl is no more. But Coney has been incredible. Parker Morin's making a case. I think he's making a case for the Fitzpatrick. I don't think that's an outlandish statement. I think I don't. So I came into the season thinking it was going to be Cordell Jones because if you win Gatorade Player of the Year as a junior, you're almost definitely going to win. I think Fitzpatrick, Mr. Basketball, whatever it is, you're the overwhelming favorite. But I think I think it's up for debate now. I think it's an open
No,
contest.
he's making a case for
I don't know how you
sure.
feel
And
about
I've
that.
obviously I'm just recently getting back to the game this season, so I haven't seen enough talent to really like name off like just based on the people that I know and I've seen. If I were to pick 3 finalists right now, it would be Cordell Jones,
Mm-hmm.
probably Parker Morin, and I would throw in Wes Gallant too, just because of the amount of times that I've seen him, over the years. And then obviously 7 touchdown
Mm-hmm.
performance this past weekend. That's nothing to scoff at. And obviously we know that 8-man players are good enough to get that kind of recognition. We saw Riley Preventure be a finalist last year. So like that's just me, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody come after me. That's just based on players I've seen in the past,
Get him.
and what I've seen just recently. And again, that was my first football game this year, so I've been out of the loop a little bit, guys. So
We're gonna put your email address up on the screen, your phone number. I think Connor Ayub is probably. I don't even know if he's a senior. Do I have a program here? I don't. But he's had a big year. Trey Walker from Falmouth. I think you've got to have some if they can finish strong. The quarterback for Greeley's been really good. I mean, there's a lot of options. Yeah, but I think it's an open debate, and I would have trouble imagining Parker Moore not being a finalist if the vote was today. I also don't know when the vote is. They might have already voted because, like with Mr. Basketball, where they vote ridiculously early, and um, and we miss out obvious candidates like the kid from Falmouth whose name has escaped me. Yeah. Okay, so Coney is sitting at 6-0. Freiburg's 4-2. Messo's 3-3. Lawrence is 3-3. I think they just had a big win. Lawrence
Freiburg,
did
they beat Freiburg
over somebody.
Yep, just
Freiburg.
beat
Okay,
Freiburg, and it was
that's a
a
huge win.
bit of a
Yeah,
shootout too,
and
47-35. That's a high scoring game in Freiburg, mind you.
that is a high scoring game. And then we've got Skowhegan, Mount Blue, and Brunswick all at 1-5. So, I mean, two of those teams are getting in, two of Skowhegan and Mount Blue. So the path, like you mentioned earlier, the path in the north is way easier than the path in the south. The south is like a murderer's row, and the north, if you're Coney and you're going to get the winner of the 4-5 of Lawrence and whoever of those 1-5 teams, let's say, gets out of there, and then you've got the winner of Freiburg and Meso. That's a lot more favorable than if you're Kennebunk and you've got to get the winner of Chevrolet Falmouth and then the winner of Westbrook
Yeah,
Monkswood.
it most certainly is a lot more. Yeah, you mentioned the path for either of those top four teams is going to be easier. You're going to have Mesalonsky who will get Skowhegan. They just beat him. They beat him earlier this season already. And you have Lawrence who, looking at the schedule right now, they beat Mount Blue as well this year. So um, so it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
the B North is going to be decided most likely in those. And once the semifinals are set, you're gonna have a really good idea of. I mean, we already know Coney has put it together big time this season. Coach BL Lippert and crew have really put it together this year.
Mm-hmm.
We knew they were right on the doorstep. They've been right on the doorstep recently, and they've taken that step this year, and they've looked really, really good. Freiburg, defending champions in C. Um, they lost. They had a lot of senior talent last year that they graduated. So they've obviously taken a little bit of a step back. They're in a
Mm-hmm.
not only are they in a new class, but they're in a new region as well. Freiburg being in a North region is still a little, it's taking me aback a little bit. You just don't usually Freiburg and North don't go together, but that's not here nor there. But and then they'll throw in Mesalonsky and Lawrence. So Coney, Meso, and Lawrence. Obviously, there's a long-standing history between those three programs. They're all geographically close to each other. They always there's a rivalry between all three of them. Lawrence and Coney, especially, and those two play. Those two have a game coming up pretty
Mm-hmm.
soon. Yeah, this Friday night, 17th is when they play. So
What What's crazy about Class B North is there's only two teams with a positive scoring differential, and that's Coney and Lawrence. Freiburg's -2, Meso's negative. Jeez, that's
whoa,
64. Wow. At 3-3, they've scored 135, they've allowed 199, and then the bottom three teams are all obviously
they
negative
gave
scoring
up.
differentials.
Let's see, they gave up 47 to Coney, 48 to Chevrolet, and 37 to Freiburg. Yeah, that would
That'll
most
do it.
certainly do it. Um, So yeah,
Jeez. All right.
that explains why they're
Whew.
scoring. That explains that scoring differential. But
So let me ask you this: should B go region free and do the one class thing
man,
that Class C is doing?
I think it's not a.
Should
I'm
everyone do
honestly
it?
pro like no regions. I don't think it would ever happen across the state just because there's a lot of schools that really like being in regions. But I think it would be really,
Mm-hmm.
really good for the sport of football to go to statewide divisions in all classes, and you really let the best of the best rise to the top when the time comes.
It's
Right?
not like these teams
No, you
aren't
could
traveling.
throw no. You could throw the travel.
Everybody's traveling a lot.
The travel argument hasn't been relevant for 4 or 5 years now. Ever since teams stopped really scheduling in their region or conference or whatever it is. Travel, and you're seeing it in other sports now too. Hell, George Stevens, and not to go off on a tangent, but George Stevens Academy's played Fort Kent twice in soccer this year, just to give you an idea of
Jeez.
how the travel argument. You can throw the travel argument out the window. So like, if anybody brings up travel, like it's irrelevant at this point, in my opinion.
Travel's trickier for soccer because
It
the
is.
games are at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and not 7 o'clock at night. And so if you're going to do that during the week, then you're out
Yeah.
of school way more than if you would be for basketball. And I know they usually do it on the weekends, the long trips, but you know what I mean. Okay, so let's go to C, which, whew, one single region, 10 teams get in, 13 teams in the region. I'm just going to write off Oceanside and Hamden right now. They're both 0-6. They have both given up way more points than they have scored. I don't know that any of them, they've had a competitive game yet. I don't think they have. Not really. And they Oceanside gave Nokomis a game. And Oak Hill, actually. So maybe they're starting to figure it out. The last 2 games. So this week I saw 3 Class C games. Pure Class C games, no crossover stuff. And in some ways, I have a better sense of the region. In other ways, I do not. And I'm more confused than I was at the beginning of it. So let's start with Greeley. I think people are sleeping on, like, I don't know. I never played football. I didn't coach football. I've watched a lot of football. I think going 6-0 in Class C against a pretty hard schedule in your first year of going from 8-man to 11-man.
Oh, it most certainly is
really
impressive. I mean, it's like, and again, I'm not a coach. I didn't play. I didn't do that transition. But going from a game of 8-man football, and mind you, for people who don't know, Greeley didn't have a football program a couple of years ago. They had to co-op with Falmouth if they wanted to play football. You went to Greeley, you want to play football, you co-op with Falmouth. So the fact that they've gone from no program whatsoever to state champion in 8-man, and now you're state champion caliber in Class C 11-man in a handful of years. Hats off to the folks. Hats off to the folks in Cumberland, because that's a great story to see. And I was fortunate to be able to broadcast the Greeley's both the 8-man games last year, the 8-man state games last year, and just seeing Greeley and just seeing how Greeley handled themselves, prepared, and all that before that game. And their roster size too. I'm just like, this team, could be successful in 11-man football, and I'm so glad to see that they made that jump this season. And lo and behold, not only are they a successful program, they're state championship favorite in Class C this year. I mean, that's they have to be the favorite. And I don't think
they have to be the favorite.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think we've seen a team that was in the 8-man, won a state title in 8-man, and then immediately the following year still be a state championship contender. I don't know if I off the top of my head I can't remember. I don't believe so. There's only been a few.
Think so?
There's been a few more programs now, but every single program that I could think of, I think there's only been one that's actually won a state title and gone back to 11-man. That was Chevrolet. But there's been other programs that have jumped back to 11-man football and are still getting things figured out. Greeley, they didn't need a transition period. Here they are getting it. They figured it out. There's more. The field is bigger. There's more players on the field this time around. You have to put more emphasis in your linemen, in your offensive and defensive lines than you do in 8-man football.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that you have to do as a program to make that adjustment, and Greeley has got it to a T. Here they are sitting undefeated against Levitt, Levitt, who everybody knows how good Levitt has been the past few years. Falmouth, the reigning B champions. Foxcroft, who dominated Class D North for years, and Wells, the 2-time defending Class D state champions. So that's a very tough schedule. And look at what they got left. They got Hamden and Oceanside left. So Greeley, really good chance for Greeley to finish their first year back in 11-man unbeaten. That's incredible.
So I went to the Wells game, and they dominated the first half. And because of one bad interception on their own 8-yard line, which is not the place you want to throw an interception. They're down 14-7 to Wells with like a minute left and a half, and I'm standing there on the sideline going, they should be up 21-0 in this game, and that's the sort of game where you think, okay, this might be the end because you need to catch breaks, in a football game. So then they throw a deep ball to the quarterback's name, I think it's Luke Piper. I don't know. I'm gonna screw that up. He's looked really good in both games I've seen them play. So apologies for getting your name potentially wrong. So he throws a deep ball to Benjamin Kyles. This one I know. Kyles gets absolutely mauled on the play, like the easiest pass interference call you will ever make in your life, and he caught the damn ball. Like, I'm filming it on my iPhone, and I'm like, well, that's an easy call. And then he pops up, and he's got the ball, and he spikes it, and the ref throws up his arms for the touchdown. I was like, oh my God. He caught that. Wow. And that was, I mean, they just rolled from there, and they ended up winning something like 35-14. And, not to anything bad about Wells, but they were clearly the better team on Friday night.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, sometimes it just takes one break. It just takes one single break, one single play, one single moment to really change the whole momentum of a game, and that just so happened to be it for Greeley. And I pulled up my chart from last year's state game, and you are correct, Luke Piper. You did get that. You did get that correct.
Okay. I typed it enough. You'd think I would have figured it out by now. Although I've started doing this thing. This is very inside baseball. Because this started because I kept spelling Jaden Ruiz wrong. Because there's two I's in Jaden Ruiz. It's two double I's. And, if you're typing real fast, you miss that sort of thing. And you don't want to spell a kid's name wrong. So I started doing the text replacement thing on my phone, where I just put in an abbreviation for a kid. So like Luke Piper's LP, and then it just pulls out his whole name, TA is Thornton Academy. And I can't believe it took me this long to figure that out. But it's been very helpful. I just load up the quarterback each game, and because most of the time you're going to be typing in. And because otherwise you're fumbling for the roster, and unless you're Michael Hoffer and you've got it memorized, and it's a whole thing. So anyway, the other game I saw, and the picture behind me is from Levitt. I went to Levitt Gardner, and Levitt dominated that game. Like, just absolutely dominated. I wrote in the newsletter, they were up 12-0 on Gardner, and it's one of those games where you're like, Gardner definitely needs a break. And they got the absolute opposite of a break in one of the worst calls I've seen all year, of an obvious incomplete pass that turns into a fumble and a fumble recovery for 6, and then it's 20-0, and that kind of took the air out of Gardner's sails, I think, a little bit, and Levitt just ran away with it. But the Levitt I've seen them 2 weeks in a row now. No, I saw them at Madomic, and I saw them 2 weeks ago, and I saw them home against Gardner, and then I saw them Greeley early in the year. And the team I saw against Gardner is considerably better than the team I saw against Greeley. But also the Greeley team I saw was considerably better than the team I saw against Levitt, which is just evidence that they have good coaches, I guess. I don't know, that whole rant. But let's not sleep on Herman.
Not. I mean,
Herman's given up 44 points.
I'm looking at Herman's schedule as well, and they got wins over Foxcroft and Wells, who were your two finalists in Class D the past 2 years, and then throw in how did you start? Foxcroft.
That's who they had to start with.
Foxcroft and Wells to start the season. I mean, that's just you can't ask for a tougher way to start the year. And in their first 2 games, they beat Foxcroft by 20, and the game against Wells was closer, 22-16. But I mean, that's you come out you start off the season 2-0 after wins against those two programs who have just dominated Class D for the past several years. And you knew Herman. I mean, you knew after last year Herman wasn't just going to go away, but to still be unbeaten with 2 games left, that's
right.
That just goes to show you how well not only has Herman built a really good program and a very short, because Herman's football program hasn't been around that long either. They've built it to the top and they're still staying at the top. And again, that just gives huge shout out to the folks out at Herman, both at the youth level and through the all different levels, all the way up to that varsity level, for maintaining a really good positive program up there.
I think it was the Bangor Daily News had an article on
I
their
believe it was the
program.
BDN.
Was it? Was it the BDN? I think it was. Okay, yeah. So then you got so you got Greeley at 6-0, Herman at 6-0, Gardner at 5-1. Not gonna go undefeated for Rob Kennedy, sadly. Then you've got Levitt, which the 4 seed that nobody wants to play at 4-2. Nokomis is 4-2. They're in 5th. That's kind of a surprise. And how are they there? Their point differential isn't very good. See, they beat York, they beat Brewer, they beat Oceanside, they beat Old Town. That's kind of a soft schedule. So that means they're going to finish with Herman and Madomic. So that's not a fun end,
especially with Herman, the way that they've been rolling recently. So it's going to be tough way to end the year for Nokomis. I mean, again, like I said earlier, you play these games on turf. There's a reason why you play them on the field. You don't base them off the stats on the paper in front of you. But it's going to be Nokomis is going to have to come out and they're going to have to play their best football for 8 straight quarters. If you don't, especially,
are they going to have to? They're going to have to win at least one of those games to hang on to a bye, because the top 6 get a bye. Do they have to win them both? I think if they win them both, it's a lot. No, they don't have to win them both.
No, I think you definitely have to take one of two. One of your last 2 if you want to hold on to that 5, at least that number 5 spot and see. Because you said top 6. Is it top 6 get a bye? So does every
top 6?
So what is it? Is it just the top 10 make it? Top 10. Okay. All right. Perfect.
Top 10 make it. Yeah. So then you've got sitting in 7th is Foxcroft. They've got Gardner and Brewer left. So Gardner will be tough. Brewer has started 2-0 and they've lost 4 straight. So the wheels are kind of, geez, Brewer hasn't scored in 3 weeks. Yeah, okay. That's not great. And then you've got Madomic threatening at 8th. Madomic just blew out York. My completely non-biased opinion of Madomic Valley sports of all kind. The case I'll make for Madomic is they are nobody's at full strength, but they've got Jaden Ruiz back, and he seems to be at full strength now. He had 5 touchdowns against York. He had that hand injury where he had multiple stitches, kind of hard, and the stitches came out right before the Nokomis game. And you're getting back in a groove. You got to get back in game shape, all that stuff. I just mentioned the stitches. I have firsthand experience with the stitches. I got stitches in this finger right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's all gnarly. It's I broke a plate trying to do the dishes and needed like 7 stitches, and in the middle of basketball season too, like right after a Red Claws game. We saw Taco Fall play. That was fun. But I needed like 7 or 8 stitches. And so I got this big thing on my hand, and it's like trying to use the iPad to do games. And like I couldn't run for 2-3 weeks, I think it was, because when you run, it's pulling at the stitches, just the movement of swinging your arms. And so I'm imagining if I were an actual athlete and not just someone who runs 5Ks every so often, that it would be pretty hard to stay in any sort of game shape with that sort of an injury. And it would be a thing you wouldn't think of until someone says, how are you going to run with a bunch of stitches in your hand? And you go, oh yeah, okay. That would be difficult. So what I'm just saying is that I wouldn't bet against Madomic, who they finished with. Oceanside and Nokomis, I would not be surprised at all if they ran the table and finished 5-3. And does 5-3 get you to the 6th seed? if you're beating Nokomis, you'd have to vault Foxcroft. So you would need Foxcroft to lose to Gardner, probably.
Yeah, you need Foxcroft to
Right?
lose one of their last two, and it would most likely be to Gardner. They finished with Brewer, which we just mentioned. Brewer's had a hard time finding the end zone the past 3 weeks. So I think, yeah, and you'd have to vault
And you'd
Wells,
have
and
to vault
Wells
Wells, too,
has
I guess.
York and Old Town left. So it's going to be Madomic. Yeah,
Yeah, that could be tricky. They
it's
might
going
be
to be
sitting at
they'd have
7.
to get a lot of help to get the 6. They would need not as much help to get to that 7 seed, and then you would get you would get arguably a little bit of a better matchup in that 7-10 whether 7-10 rather than the 8-9, which would be right now it would be Old Town based on the stuff that I'm looking at.
And it would put you on, and it would put them on Herman's side of the bracket, their old rival, who they have played in the playoffs, I think, the last 4 years. Well, it's funny because when I had Ryan Snell on the podcast, he was talking about how it was kind of a bummer that they didn't have Herman on their schedule this year, and maybe they play him in the playoffs, but I don't think he was hoping to be the 7
first
in a
round
2-7 matchup in that scenario. Yeah, I think he was hoping for maybe a regional final or something like that. But you play the games when they come up. Is there any? Boy, yeah, Wells is good. Wells is 3-3, and I think they've been close games. Yeah, they lost to Herman by 6. They lost to Gardner by 2. I was at that game. That was a really good game. And then Greeley, they lost to Greeley 35-14. So I think Wells is probably a top 6 in that region or that class. I think if I had to hot take it, I'd say Nokomis falls out of the top 6. And then then Wells replaces them, and then it's a question of Foxcroft and Madomic for the 6th seed. If I was a betting man, which I would never bet on anything.
No, I think that's definitely a that would definitely
Right.
be certainly a safe way to go, just based on which of these teams in the middle of the pack here have left. I would say Madomic and Wells have the best chances to move up a spot or two. Nokomis is going to need they're going to need to be playing their best football in the final 2 weeks if they want to maintain a top 6 spot and not have to play a prelim game to start.
So if this just for fun, so on the site I also calculate heels for football. So the heels for football for Class C, it goes Greeley, Herman, Gardner, Levitt at 4, Wells is 5 when we do it by heel points. Nokomis is 6, then Foxcroft is 7, and Madomic is 8. And then Old Town and York are 9 and 10. So it's a little different when you look at the heels, and I think that
it definitely does reflect it. Of course,
schedule.
Schedule plays an important part no matter which formula you use with Crabtree or the heel points, but both bring out a different different aspect to your scheduling. Like with the heels, the more good teams you beat, the more good teams you beat, the better your heel point ranking. Whereas with the Crabtree, it doesn't really matter who you beat. It's right. You got to beat somebody that gets your winning percentage up, and that's all that matters when it comes to the Crabtree standings.
This is all it struck me is very much my version of Bill Simmons trying to talk him into Jason Tatum coming back after the All-Star break. It's like, well, which I've also been doing, going, well, what if they could get the 6th seed and Tatum could come back and be full strength for the playoffs? That's not nothing in a weak Eastern Conference, right? Is that a thing? And I think it is a thing, but this is the Maine high school football version of that. All right, let's move on to D. We'll finish up with D because this is already an hour and a half long, not counting the introduction I already recorded and that I have not yet recorded. All right, D. Okay, what do we got here? over in the South, we got Winthrop at 6-0. We got Dirigo, Oak Hill, Freeport, all at 4-2. Then Poland 3-3. Morris is 2-4. How many get in here?
Yeah,
6 get in. I think that's your 6. Because
yeah.
Lisbon is
First and
1-5 and
foremost, for
Mountain
any
Valley's
team
0-6.
that's after the reclassification this past year, so for any of the remaining teams that are still in Class D, they got to be saying, thank goodness that we do not, in the South, we don't have to deal with Wells, and in the North, we don't have to deal with Foxcroft, because
Yep.
they've all got to be
Yep.
thrilled about that. And I think it
They've got to be
shows,
thrilled.
especially looking at D South right now. Of course, Winthrop, the Winthrop Monmouth-Talldale, yeah, 32 points allowed.
32 points allowed.
They've been the bridesmaid in D South for the past several years now, to Wells, and to be able now them as a program, they got to be thinking, man, this is our year that we're going to be able to take that next step, and we are in a really good spot to go play for a gold ball in November. But with but you look
It
at of course, you look
sure
at the
does
rest of
look like it.
Class D. That puts a lot of pressure on them at the same time, because you have all these other teams here, like Dirigo. They were an 8-man not long ago. Oak Hill, it's been a little while. Freeport had an up and down history as of recently, and then Poland, yeah, an up and down year for Freeport as
Had an
well.
up and down year.
They beat Mountain Valley, they beat Madomic, Lisbon, Maranacook, and then losses to Winslow and Oak Hill. So and then you look at Morse, they were an 8-man not too terribly long ago, and then Poland. So you get a lot of teams there that are kind of in a unfamiliar position, so to say, with the way D South has restacked itself. So you're going to see, I think, um, come playoff time, this is going to be very interesting. And I do go back to your main point. The top 6 we got right now is probably what we're going to get um, here in a few weeks. So it's going to be, Morris goes to Oak Hill, Poland goes to Freeport, and then Dirigo Winthrop probably be, but that would be your buys right now. Obviously, there could be a lot of change. You could throw 2, 3, and 4 right now under a blanket for that 2 seed for the 2 seed in the first round bye. So that's going to get really, really interesting. No, you do
And
not.
you
You
really
really do
don't want
not
to be
want to
the
be the 4
4.
seed.
Yeah, you really want to be the 2. I think you really want to be the 2 here. Yeah. All right, let's move to D. And we'll wrap D North. We'll wrap this up. Baps is 6-0. They blew out Winslow earlier this year, who's 5-1. Madison's 5-1. MCI is 2-4. Maranacook, aka not Lake Region, is 1-5. Don't worry, we'll use an AI, and every time you say Maranacook, we'll just replace it with a Lake Region. Matt Knockhook 2-4, and Belfast is
Yes,
getting ready for
indeed they are.
basketball season. But
Yep.
they have a promising basketball season ahead, so that's not so bad for them.
John Bapp's kind of in the similar spot that Winthrop has been in. They've been the bridesmaid to Foxcroft the past several years, and now they have really taken the step up to give themselves a chance to really shine and take that next step and go play for a gold ball in November. And I'm looking at the rest of the schedule right here. They blew out Winslow. They beat the Madison Carabac Valley Co-op. So I'm looking at this right now, and obviously on paper, it looks like John Bapp's reaching to win. But obviously, you got to factor in injuries, other teams peaking at the right time. So it's John Bapp's maybe the favorite right now, but that just puts more pressure on them as the season begins to wind down. And that could leaves plenty of room for Maranacook, Madinock-Cook, or MCI to really step in and kind of be that spoiler. And for Winslow and Madison, it's going to be a neck and neck battle for that number 2 seed, because right now you throw them 2 under a blanket for number 2.
And this is a little similar to B South or B North in that only 3 of the 7 teams have a positive scoring differential in Baps, Winslow, and Madison. And MCI is sitting in the 4 seed, and they are negative 133.
Let's see. Yep.
Yeah. And they'll get a home prelim, a home quarterfinal. And if it shakes, I mean, they're not passing Madison, so somebody who's got a
I'm
very
just
negative
looking at
point
their
differential is
scores
going
right
to have
now.
a
Yeah,
home quarterfinal.
54, 60, 59, 63. Yeah, yeah, that'll certainly do it.
They have given up
Whew.
285 points on the year. So if your offense is struggling, go to MCI. Go hang out with Stacks, play some video games,
Go
and
score some
then go
points.
score
But
some
yeah, right
points.
now,
All right. Do you want to make a prediction on Class D? Because it looks like
yeah,
it
it
looks
looks
like
like
you can
most
see the
certainly
state
looks
game
like it's going
coming
to be
here.
Baps and Winthrop, and I think just looking at, I haven't seen either team in person yet this year, but I just looking at the
I haven't either.
schedule, and I'm just looking real quick at what Baps has scored for points. Okay, Baps has scored a lot of points this year. Um, and I'm looking to see. Let me go back to D South real quick just to see what Winthrop's been putting up for points, and Winthrop.
205
Okay,
versus
so
32.
honestly, right now on paper, I think it would be certainly be a pretty. I think that would be a very entertaining state championship game, and I think I would lean toward. And this might be recency bias, or exposure bias, whatever you want to call it. I'd probably lean towards
Mm-hmm.
Winthrop just on the fact that it seemed the South, the pattern in Maine has been the South teams have always had the better programs, and that's no disrespect to the Northern programs whatsoever. It's just that's the pattern it's been, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
I guess used to just leaning towards the South team. So I think it would be Winthrop. It would be close, but I think Winthrop would get it.
Winthrop is
Okay.
higher in the power rankings, if that helps you any. They're
Okay, so that
16th
not
and
too far
Baps is
apart.
21st, so they're pretty close. Yeah, they're what is that? Like 3.5 points apart in the Dirigo number. So that's probably
Yeah,
the pick
yeah.
would depend on who's at home. Probably close enough for that. All right. Well, this has been very long, but very helpful, very informative. Ethan, where I had one more question for you. Okay, so before I have one more question for you, but I just completely spaced out.
All right, so
Before I
this
ask you my
week,
question,
right
where can
now,
people
I
find
am
you? What game are you doing this
still in
week?
the for. I am going back down to Old Orchard Beach Friday night. I'm doing Sockeye Valley and Old Orchard girls soccer under the lights Friday night on WHOU.live, and then Saturday, still not confirmed, but I'm really sure, I'm confident it's going to happen. Amy and everybody at Chevrolet has been just as good for us. We'll have Chevrolet and Westbrook from Deering Memorial Field Saturday afternoon at 1:15. I don't know if you've heard, but Chevrolet has
Ooh.
been playing their home games at Deering
Okay.
because WHOU Stadium is getting turf put down. So that fun.
I
It's
have
going to
heard that.
really spice up the Chevrolet facilities down there. Not that they needed it; it's always already a beautiful facility, but it's going to be a lot better for those athletes in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
So looking forward to this weekend, and yeah, ready to get back into it full time.
All right, and so final question: while you were on your vision quest, did you come up with anything revolutionary that the MPA should
I would
change?
say MPA needs. I would say I don't know if this would be. I don't know if this is revolutionary, but there needs to be. I would say, come tournament time. This will probably never happen, but tournament time, instead of tournaments by class, we take the top 64 teams in the state using your rankings, and we do a super tournament. Boys and girls,
I love this
we do a
idea.
big super tournament. We seed them based on
I
your
love it.
formula. First two rounds are at the
I
higher
love it.
seed. Then Sweet 16,
Uh-huh.
Sweet 16 in Bangor, Elite 8 in Portland, Final Four, and championship in Augusta.
You wouldn't spread them out? Okay. I love it. I love it. That's a great idea. From your lips to Mike Burnham's ears.
Hey,
All
thank
right.
you,
This
Lucas.
has been
Always good
great.
to
Thanks
have
for
you
doing
on.
this.
And just one quick thing for everybody listening out there. Take care of your mental health, because ultimately that's the most important. Should be the most important thing on the minds for everybody. Whether you're a parent, you're a fan, you're an athlete. I guess if you're a parent, especially, make sure keep an eye on the
Hmm.
mental health of your athletes, your children, your students, because that's super, and yourself, because
And
that's
yourself.
without good maintenance of your mental health, nothing else matters. So take care of yourselves mentally, people. That's all. That's how we gotta wrap this up.
Preach. All right. I'm ending the recording. Okay, that's the show. Thanks again to Ethan Snow for joining me. Always fun to talk to him. Yes, mental health, very important mental health. I have had mental health issues myself. They're not fun, not to be trifled with. Take care of your stuff. Um, I'm not going to change the background or anything, but quick movie corner. Diane Keaton died this weekend. I found this out today. I missed it because I was at a football game and I completely didn't hear about it. Diane Keaton was awesome. If you don't know Diane Keaton, she was the best. One of the great actresses in the history of film. Um, I know it's very unpopular to watch Woody Allen movies, but the early Woody Allen movies she did are amazing, and she's amazing in them. She's, of course, a critical part of The Godfather and The Godfather Part 2, which are two classics, and everything she's in is amazing. And everything I've heard about her from people is that she was an absolute delight in real life. So rest in peace to one of the greats. Go watch Annie Hall. Annie Hall is stunning, and you might separate the art from the artist, but it's such a good movie. It's just so good. Yeah. All right, that's going to do it. This has been a production of Maine Basketball Rankings.com, your source for the most comprehensive coverage of Maine high school basketball from Ashland to York and everywhere in between. This podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts and a bunch of places you don't. If you enjoy this, please leave a nice review because it really does help out with algorithms. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your rivals. Thanks for listening. Oh, and votedexter.com. Vote early, vote often.